The Ambitious Radio Network. Conversations with ambitious entrepreneurs and thought leaders. Are you an entrepreneur, startup junkie, or just someone interested in improving their leadership skills? If you're looking to be motivated, inspired, and uncover what it takes to get to the next level, listening to Ambitious Radio will be well worth the investment of your time. We have weekly engaging conversations with today's most influential thought leaders and entrepreneurs as they discuss their successes, failures, tipping points, and other priceless information that you can apply immediately after listening. And welcome to the show. Good to have you right here. It is Ambitious Radio, hosted by our friend Doug Parker, talking about entrepreneurship and leadership while interviewing interesting people and what makes them ambitious. Now, you know the show wouldn't be possible without our sponsors, Grasshopper.com, the entrepreneur's phone system. You know, most of the time, small business owners need to personally guarantee any loans that their companies take out. That can be kind of tough to do if you have credit issues. So if you have less than perfect credit, go to RepairMyCreditNow.com for a free credit report evaluation. RepairMyCreditNow.com. Doug, what do we have going on today?
I'll tell you what, when I was doing my research on this one, I was absolutely blown away. Today we've got Samit. He's a serial entrepreneur and intrapreneur who has raised hundreds of millions of dollars for startups, taken companies public, transformed entire industries, and is widely recognized as one of the world's leading experts on disruption and innovation. His international bestseller, Disrupt You, has been translated into 6 languages, and I've also heard him described as a serial disruptor. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, Doug. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'll tell you what, you have worked with just about every Fortune 500 company imaginable. I'm looking through kind of your bio or your CV, and Coca-Cola, McDonald's, General Motors, Apple, Microsoft. I'm seeing pictures of you with Bill Gates and others. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And tell us a little bit about yourself that's not, part of your professional life. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? And how did you get where you are today?
So I grew up in Philadelphia. My father was a school teacher, very normal life. And I started to notice that the world was changing. And as you start seeing the patterns of what makes things change and that those patterns are happening more frequently, I ended up being one of these guys that just looks at industries and transforms them.
I've heard this serial entrepreneur term thrown around a lot, and I've started several businesses and done different things. But when I look at some of the things that you've done, and I kind of maybe not necessarily compare because there's really not a comparison from what I've done. But you talk about the disruption piece, and I think that was really what got my attention, because a lot of people will start businesses and do things that others are doing just a little bit better. But then there's this whole disruption piece. And can you share just a little bit about that? Because I know you're world class at it, and just how you saw the changes coming, but really how did you? It's one thing to see it; it's another thing to actually do something about it.
So everybody wants to change the world. Most people don't realize it begins with changing themselves. And the second you realize you don't have limitations, it makes it much easier to do the same in business. So every day there's new inventions, new things, the Internet of Things, Bitcoin, 3D printing, it goes on and on and on. And you look around and say, where did those experts come from? Those people that are social media experts, that are podcasting experts, whatever it might be. They just woke up one day and said, I'm an expert. They read everything they could. They did everything they could. They faked it till they made it. And then they fought hard to defend that turf. So, at the early days of the computer revolution, nobody knew what to do with computers. And I was sitting there saying, boy, these big companies are spending millions making these boxes and have no clue of what a person's going to do with it. The digital music revolution, doing the first auction that became eBay, working with Reed on LinkedIn, working with Bill Gates to get video on a computer. These were all obvious ideas. And the thing for the listeners to understand is I'm not an engineer. Bill Gates never wrote, was an engineer, but Steve Jobs never wrote a line of code. So it's not about needing special training. It's about looking at the world differently. And the secret for everybody listening is quite simple. Do you have problems in your life? Well, problems or obstacles are just opportunities in disguise. If you can find a problem that a bunch of people have, you'll make a bunch of money. 2 kids were sitting in traffic in Tel Aviv complaining about how bad the traffic was, and they realized the phone company knows that their phone is in their car and somebody else is on another. What if the phone company told you to make a left and told the other guy to make right? There'd be no traffic. That was the basis for Waze. So the only two things you really need to be successful in life are insight and persistence. Everything else can be hired.
Insight and persistence. Everything else can be hired. That is a golden nugget. And it's really one thing, to come up with an idea. It's a whole nother thing to actually go execute it. I've heard many people, talk over the years about, hey, they should do this or they should do that. And they throw out this they should do it. Now, it sounds like, what the common denominator is between the disruptions that you have caused and some of these others. You mentioned Bitcoin, and I think in some of the other videos you talked about Facebook and Alibaba and some of these guys, how they've done things in a very, very non-traditional way, but they actually just get out there and take action and make those things happen. Now, you threw out a couple names. You mentioned working with Reed at LinkedIn and also I think you said Bill Gates at Microsoft. Can you just talk a little bit about maybe the experience and how you get connected with those folks and then what, how does that transpire? I mean, how do you bounce ideas and go, it's one thing to say Microsoft should do this, but hey, Doug Parker can't necessarily pick up the phone and call Bill Gates. But how did that work for you?
So I'll give you the true story on that one. So I was a small little startup company, about 10 employees, and we came through with a breakthrough, great idea, great product, and like everybody thinks. And I'm trying to figure out who would this benefit. And I realized it would be really good for the Windows platform as opposed to Apple. Pick a side. And so literally, reached out to somebody I had never met, never knew, made a case at Microsoft of why this would be good. But rather than ask Bill Gates specifically, we asked Bill Gates, would he introduce us to David Geffen? David Geffen is a billionaire, owned a large record label, had John Lennon and the Eagles and everybody signed to his label. So I literally asked one billionaire that I never met, would he introduce me to another billionaire that I've never met, knowing that I could make a product that would make both of them money. And the rest is history. Became one of the best-selling video games and was the first video game to put rock and roll music into video games. So the point of the matter is, let's pretend you're back in high school or college and there's that beautiful girl on campus. You can say, wow, she's too pretty, I won't ask her out, and you're guaranteed not to get a date. Or you can say, I can ask her out. If she says, no, I've lost nothing, I'm back where I started. That's the mentality. Too many people have a fear of failure, okay? And failing is part of the process. So when I look back at all these amazing things, working with the Vatican or the White House or whoever, it all started because what do I have to lose if I try? Absolutely nothing. And in fact, if you try and fail, you'll learn what doesn't work, which makes you smarter the next time.
That's a common denominator also, that failure. Nobody wants to fail. However, there are so many lessons learned in failure. And when you look at, the analogy of the beautiful young lady, you're not really failing if she says no, because like you said, you didn't lose anything. You didn't have that to begin with anyway. And I love that, you said you ask one billionaire to introduce you to another billionaire, and just not being scared to do that. It's reaching out there, continuing to swing for the fences, and in a baseball analogy, I mean, if somebody strikes out 7 out of 10 times in their career, they wind up making the Hall of Fame, batting 300. So the reality is, you can fail a lot more than you succeed, and still make it in life and do very, very well.
And if you look at the people that have become household names, Walt Disney, Bill Gates, Heinz from Heinz Ketchup, Henry Ford, all these people had companies that went and failed before they had their success. Success is a process. It's not this overnight, you're not going to sit there and invent the flux capacitor and suddenly be like Doc Brown. It's a series of going and exploring something. And virtually every big company that you know of didn't follow their business plan. Their business plan had them explore something, and it failed. I'll give you a great idea. A few years ago, there was everybody was checking in with Foursquare, and you could basically game the system and just say you were, at the White House and click and be the mayor, and it was stupid. And so another company called Bourbon said, we'll ask people to take a picture when they check in to prove that they're there. Well, Bourbon was failing. Nobody cared about checking in, but they liked seeing each other's people's pictures. So about 6 months into the business, they changed their name to Instagram and sold for billions.
That is unbelievable. Just how the branding and a little bit of tweaking can make such an impact. Now,
but here's the secret, not to cut you off, but the secret is look at the data. Look at what people are doing. This isn't just for tech businesses. I can give you examples for restaurants, for packaging, for clothing, every sector. I mean, that's what makes this so exciting. We're living in an era of endless innovation where you're connected by your phone to 6 billion people. So you only have to be right for a nanosecond to become a billionaire or change the world.
That is impressive information, and look at the data. It's great advice from Jay Samit. And right after a break, we're going to hear from our sponsors, and then we'll hear more from Jay about his career pursuits and his experience of becoming an ambitious entrepreneur right here on the Ambitious Radio Network.
Could you lose your career because of your faith? Could your pastor be sued because of his sermons? Can students and teachers be punished because of what they believe about God or what they say? Can the government or even your employer force you to violate your beliefs? Get the answers, and if necessary, legal protection from First Liberty Institute. This is Kelly Shackelford, president of First Liberty. We are the nation's largest legal organization dedicated exclusively to restoring religious freedom in America. In fact, First Liberty's nationwide network of top attorneys win over 90% of their cases. We've won at the Supreme Court all the way down to the local schools. If you want hope for religious freedom, go to firstliberty.org and get your free In God We Trust window clean. That's firstliberty.org.
As we get back into the show, let's give a shout out to our great sponsors, all3reports.com. That's all, the number 3 reports with an S.com. Many people check their credit every 3 to 5 years when they're financing a home or maybe when they're purchasing a new vehicle. But if there is an issue, it could be too late to do anything about it. So go to all3reports.com to find out more. Speaking of a new vehicle, a wise person once said, lease what depreciates, buy what appreciates. So go to AutoFlex Leasing. They offer a better way to lease your next car. America's largest independent leasing company is AutoFlex Leasing. Doug?
All right, we're back with Jay Samit on the Ambitious Radio Network, and we're going to talk a little bit about his professional adventures. He's done so much. Right now, he's just recently written a book that's been translated into 6 different languages, Disrupt You. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came up with that?
Yeah, so I've been very blessed and very lucky. And when you look at these big famous names and the people that I've gotten to work with and partner, Richard Branson and Gates and Jobs and all these people, you think of them as these icons and you don't realize they're just regular people just like everybody. You don't have to go to the right schools. You don't have to have access to bankers or their connections. We're all interconnected. And what we're not teaching in school is how to get from where you are to where you want to be. And it starts with first disrupting yourself. It's akin to plastic surgery, but you hold the scalpel. It's how can you change those beliefs? So all the well-wishers in your life told you what you couldn't do because they didn't want you to get hurt. You're not a good speaker, you're an introvert, you're this or that. And you start to internalize and believe these. And when you realize that you're malleable and you can change yourself, changing the world becomes easy. So the book is really about how to go and disrupt any industry and what that process is and some of the greatest minds and research and how it's done. And it's basically a roadmap for getting the most out of your life, because I believe the purpose of life is to live a life of purpose. So if you have these great ideas and you don't share them with the world, you're really being selfish and stealing.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's selfish to keep all that to yourself, and there's so many people out there that they want to be an entrepreneur. They think they want to start a business or do those kinds of things, but they have some fears. And let's talk about that for just a moment. You've done significant things. Have you always been seemingly fearless and just jumping out there, or did at some point you just kind of shook it off and there was a tipping point and said, hey, the heck with all this, I'm going forward?
So I didn't set out to be this entrepreneur. I bought into society's implicit social contract: get good grades, go to good university, and live happily ever after. And I came out of college at a recession. There were no jobs, much like 2.3 billion millennials are facing today. And so I had two young sons, and there's no greater motivation than looking down at your children and wanting them to have a better life than you had. So I literally said, what do I have to lose? And my first company, I wanted to do special effects like they had in Star Wars. I thought that would be the next thing, Hollywood special effects. One minor problem, I didn't know anybody in Hollywood. I didn't have any computer skills, and I knew nothing about graphics. So for $1, I printed business cards for my non-existent computer graphics company, went around and hustled, got tons of work, and then hired people that knew how to do what I just committed to. And that's basically the process of every business.
During that process, were there any landmines that you stepped on? I mean, obviously you're quick on your feet and articulate, and so it's one thing to fake it till you make it, as they say. But were there ever any situations that just kind of come to mind that's like, you kind of jumped out there and you overextended maybe your talk overextended what you could back up?
So Reid Hoffman has a great expression. A true entrepreneur is somebody that jumps off a cliff and assembles the airplane on the way down. There's constantly the tension between we're going to run out of cash, you're maxed out your credit cards, whatever it might be, until you learn other techniques. But the difference nowadays is you can put together a stellar team and find the right people anywhere in the world. We're so interconnected. You don't have to build all the infrastructure. You can now, with your phone, instantly launch a business. And so you're seeing self-made billionaires in their 20s happen every month. They have the same 24 hours in a day that you and I do. What are they doing differently? How are they viewing the world differently? And why aren't we teaching this in schools? Entrepreneurs are the only job creators. Washington isn't going to solve this problem. And it is really easy to do it. So why not teach people the step-by-step and show and what that process is?
It's interesting that you bring that up, that they're not teaching that in school. One of our former guests, Lachlan Johnson, was on the show a few episodes back, and she was one of the first children to be on Shark Tank. And Damon John invested in her company and has continued to work with her over the past 6 or 7 years. But her newest business is gamifying the entrepreneurial experience. So teaching kids how to be entrepreneurs, and real excited about seeing what's going to come out of that, because I think you're right. It's we've got this make good grades, go to college, and all those kinds of things. And me personally, I've never been to college a day in my life, and by God's grace and hard work and some things going the right way, I've had a pretty successful career. But there's so many people nowadays that take that traditional route, and they're just up to their eyeballs in debt from student debt, and they don't even know anything. They don't even have any knowledge they can go apply and do anything with. So have you ever considered doing anything in that space?
So I've worked tremendously with education. I was appointed by the White House to get the internet into Americans' classrooms, and in 18 months we wired every classroom in the United States without $1 of taxpayer money. So I believe that access to knowledge is the great equalizer. But let's go back to your audience for a second that's thinking about making a change and becoming an ambitious person. Here's what they really have to sink in. Everybody says, I have a good job, I'm at a good company, security robs ambition. It's actually the illusion of security. Of the original Fortune 500 companies, only 57 are still in existence. So whether by choice or circumstance your career is going to get disrupted, you're going to find yourself one day out there and not have the tools or the ability to control your own destiny. So you either choose to live your life helping someone else fulfill their dreams or building your own. And until you face that existential question of why are you here and what do you want to do for you and your family and community, you really won't maximize your time on this planet.
Guys, security robs ambition. And that is very, very powerful words. I'm glad you shared that. I got almost like a little chill bump on that, because I'm thinking back through my entrepreneurial experience, and one of the biggest reasons, that prevented me from jumping into it full time was I was making a lot of money. I was doing well. I had all the benefits and all that, and it was tough to walk away from and finally do it. Now I'm glad I did, and now over a decade later, not having a boss and doing multiple things, it makes a huge difference. But there are ups and downs and all around. So let's talk real quick, just kind of about maybe going back to your past, and if you could give yourself one piece of advice, what would it have been, and at what point in your life would that have been? What were you doing then?
I wish I had figured this all out so much quicker, but you learn through experience. And the best piece of advice that I can give young people, there's two. One is be the best at what you do, or the only one doing it. Because by definition, if you're the only one doing it, if you're unique, you were therefore the best of the world at it. So what that really means is don't try to follow this path of somebody else. Don't try to follow something that already exists. No one led a nation, a company, invented anything by following the path of another. Really try to go out, and the world is changing so quickly. Find a piece of virgin turf and be your own person, and really not try to please other voices and this or that. I was that good student. I got a full ride scholarship to top law school. The summer before law school, I realized I had no desire to be a lawyer. I was doing it to please my parents. And they weren't happy. They were really not happy when I didn't go. And it was the best decision I ever made, but it was a decision that I was willing to take the risk because I knew who I was. So really listen to that voice in your head, believe in yourself. And that is the only voice that will be with you the rest of your life. And if you go to visit a senior citizen's home or talk to old relatives, you will find invariably that people's biggest regrets in life are not the things that they failed at, but the risks they didn't take.
Are there any books in addition to your book, Disrupt You, that you would recommend that an ambitious individual or new entrepreneur would read?
One that changed my life that's still in print from 20, 30 years ago, called The Peter Principle, that shows you how upside down the world is, that everybody rises to their level of incompetence. That'll give you an insight on how to negotiate and deal with people. But before we wrap up the segment, for anybody listening that wants to get started, 40-page workbook for free. Just reach out to me at jsamit.com or on Twitter at jsamit. And you can start today, because everybody asks me, is now a good time to start a new business? And I say, no. The best time was a year ago. The second best time is now.
That is great stuff. So on our show notes page, guys, as we always put together, you can just type in Jay Samit, and then you can pull up his page. And on there, we will have a link to all of his social media, as well as a link to his website. And like I said, there's no time like the present. The only better time would have been in the past, which we can't go back there just yet. Not likely to ever be able to do that. So, go log on, go to his page, and it's a free 40-page workbook to get you started on your ambitious tour if you haven't started already doing that. So tune in right after the break. We'll hear more from Jay Samit. And again, if you like what you hear, let 3 people know right now. Take a pause. Let others know, because this is great content that we're going through, and we really always appreciate the folks that come on to our show that pour into us. We want you to have some opportunities to walk away with things that you can apply. If you'd like to be notified of new shows that are coming up, you can subscribe by texting the word ambitious to 69922. That's 69922. Standard messaging rates will apply. See the website for full details, and we'll be right back on the Ambitious Radio Network. Hey, ambitious listeners, you hear us interviewing entrepreneurs all the time, and there's a common theme. They want to be more productive and improve their communication. As an ambitious entrepreneur, you're always on the go. So turn your mobile phone into a business phone system with Grasshopper, the entrepreneur's phone system. The Ambitious Radio Network recently partnered with Grasshopper to offer our listeners a special discount. Log on to ambitiousradio.com and click on the Grasshopper banner in the bottom right-hand corner. Get a new business number or keep your current one. Sound professional with a main greeting and multiple extensions that forwards callers to your mobile phone or others in your organization. Get a toll-free number or local number for your business with multiple extensions. Set up each extension with custom call forwarding to any phone in the world. Get your voicemails emailed to you as an audio attachment or transcribe an email. Keep business calls separate from your personal calls. Plans start at $12 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Remember to click on the Grasshopper banner at ambitiousradio.com for a special discount for our listeners. Join the over 150,000 small business owners that have stayed connected with Grasshopper. See how Grasshopper works? It's the entrepreneur's phone system. Turn the world into your office.
Back in here on the show, it's Ambitious Radio Network. Hey, are you thinking of expanding your business but don't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars on a new phone system? Consider Grasshopper.com. You get to keep your existing number, you have multiple extensions, voicemails transcribed, and no new hardware. Grasshopper.com is the entrepreneur's phone system. Let's get back to the show with Doug Parker.
All right, we're back on the Ambitious Radio Network talking to Jay Samit today, author of Disrupt You. And this guy is doing everything. He's done all kinds of things in the past. So we're going to talk a little bit about how he determines what to work on next. How does he stay focused on what he's currently working on and what that transition looks like. So let's jump right in. Tell us a little bit about kind of what you think is next on your agenda. Do you have any projects that are already planned out or that you're already working on?
Oh, I'm like a kid in the candy store. There is so much innovation happening right now, and the world is changing so quickly. Here's what's driving me, if I can just get on a soapbox for 2 seconds. When we look at the instability around the world, when we look at what's happening with ISIS in the Middle East or in the inner cities in this country or the Greek economy, it's not race, religion, or culture that's causing these problems. What it is lack of jobs for millennials. And we have more people in this one generation than were on the entire planet when my parents were born. So I'm on a mission around the world. I was in 12 countries this past year, 20 odd states, really trying to teach entrepreneurship to youth, to people transitioning mid-career, to governments to show them how to change their tax policies and encourage investment in starting new businesses. And the businesses are really come down to one simple thing. An entrepreneur is not somebody that seeks to make money. An entrepreneur is somebody who is seeking to solve problems. The world has tons of problems. So go out and solve one. You solve for 1 million people, you become a millionaire. It's that simple. So I'm working on things with blockchain and Bitcoin. I'm 3D printing. I'm obsessed with autonomous vehicles. I mean, when you realize that the #1 job in the U.S. is truck driver, and in 5 years there will be very few truck drivers, office automation will take away half of all white-collar jobs. 3D printing will change manufacturing from mass manufacturing to custom. So there's so much opportunity. And can I just give you an example of people thinking different and doing something great? Heaven forbid that you had a child born missing a limb or fingers or whatever. They wouldn't get a prosthetic until they were in their teens because of the cost, and they grow too fast. Imagine the impact on that kid not being able to play ball and play with the other kids and feeling less than, withdrawn. Their horizon for life is changed. With 3D printing, you can make a custom prosthetic every 6 months, very, very cheap. But this entrepreneur here in LA, he went to Disney and said, not only am I doing this, but can I license Frozen, Iron Man, Star Wars? Can I make really cool prosthetics so the kid can go from being less than to being more than? How does that change a child's life? These are the types of businesses that you can now launch and have a global marketplace with no capital. It's that easy.
You know, those are things. When you were going through that, I was kind of just mentally picturing a kid without a limb, or as you mentioned, fingers, or whatever the case is, and that that's not something that I have necessarily thought about in the past. It's amazing how many different scenarios there are out there, and I was just thinking about them, sliding on a prosthetic of some sort. But then whenever you talked about the Iron Man and the Frozen and them having actually something that's cool, I thought, man, that is unbelievable. That's a great thing about entrepreneurism and the opportunities here in America and of course worldwide. But there are so many cool things that you can just, if you can dream it, you can do it. And it's just going out there and taking action and being innovative and persistent, as you mentioned a little bit earlier in the episode. But let's talk about the other side of this. So many entrepreneurs, it's like they got ADD. It's like squirrel, and they're off to something else. So it's one thing to come up with these ideas and constantly be that kid in the candy store, but at some point you also have to dial it back and focus. So what makes you great can also be a big distraction. So with all the things you've had going on, is that something you've naturally been able to just kind of curb and say, okay, now I got to focus on this, or do you have ways to kind of cope with that and draw yourself back in to focus for a season?
So I was luckily born as a person that doesn't need a lot of sleep. The reverse of that really means that there are, 21 hours a day or 20 hours a day that I have to keep my brain occupied. So I love just getting lost on the net and exploring and learning, and my social media feed of people that I know, just such ideas and thoughts going out there. But to really focus and recharge, you can look at the data, you can see when you're wrong, you can see what works, what doesn't work. I mean, you don't fall in love with your ideas. As I said, invite data to every meeting. It doesn't have an ego, it won't steer you wrong. But sometimes you just got to unplug. And so, for me personally, a couple times a week, I'll do a 10-mile walk down the beach and just, look and see and clear your mind. And sometimes your best ideas come to you and you don't know how or why, and you just have to be ready to accept them. But at this stage, I've been blessed to have access to a lot of people and a lot of companies. So I'm trying to spend most of my time connecting the dots for entrepreneurs that are partway there but can't figure out how to get to the next step. If only I could work with such and such company. And to me, that's really thrilling because no one has a monopoly on ideas. And what I didn't realize, and what we don't teach in school, that teacher says 10% of the kids will get the A. That instantly teaches every child that they're in competition with everybody else, as opposed to everybody that gets 100% should get an A. Let's learn to help everybody else, because you can't make it alone. You have to build a team. You have to find a mentor. You really have to figure out what you're good at and what you're not. And there's nothing wrong with not being good at everything. You can find the best to fill out your
Find the best to fill out your team. You can't be the best at everything. That's great advice, guys. Now let's just talk, for the next few minutes, let's talk about mentoring, because you mentioned that you've been obviously exposed to, names that you're throwing out are people that, I like to follow them on Facebook or on Twitter, but these are people that you actually have a relationship with. So I think a couple of them were Bill Gates and Steven Spielberg and Reid Hoffman, several other ones. Let's talk about that mentoring and what that really looks like in real life.
So it values to share the knowledge that they have with the next generation, and conversely, being a mentor really gives you the idea to synthesize what you've learned and to figure it out. That's why I teach how to build a high-tech startup at USC, the largest engineering university in the country. And I've taught two students. I had two students that had the best pitch ever in a class. And within their first year in business, they did $150 million. Now, that's the exception to the rule, okay? But what an amazing exception, okay? So they didn't have a background. They hadn't started a business. They didn't know how to raise money from venture capital. Mentors can teach you all those things. What a mentor doesn't have is your life experience that led you to that idea, that insight of how the world has changed. So many young people are searching for an app or something, and they can't find it because no one else thought of that idea yet. Mm-hmm. That's the opportunity. And every day our world is changing and becoming better and wider. I hear the best part of writing a book like Disrupt You is you hear from readers in the 21st century. You hear from everybody. And I heard from a young guy in Pakistan who read one of the chapters and changed his life, whether I deserve the credit or not. And he's now the highest paid guy in his field. And I was just humbled and awed. And all that he did was do the same thing that somebody had done in the US that nobody had done in Pakistan yet. And he wasn't an engineer. He wasn't in high tech. He was just looking for ways to take care of his family.
When you find an issue out there, there's something, an itch that needs scratching, if you will, there's that opportunity to make it happen. And like you said, he found something that just wasn't being done in his country, but it was being done in America and duplicated. I've seen some stories like that, and it's really amazing when you can make those things happen, and it's great to hear success stories.
And I've heard from teachers that use it in schools. I've heard from pastors that use it with their congregations. I mean, Disrupt You isn't – the first third is about changing yourself. The second third is about all the aspects of business. But the last third is, if you're not money motivated, how you can take these same techniques to change the world, change the educational system, change the healthcare system, change whatever it is that you think needs improving, because the process is identical. And the only people that have ever changed the world were those that decided to. So if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Mm-hmm. It's that simple.
Yep, you're absolutely right. That is great stuff. Great information. Ambitious Times. Speaking today with Jay Samit. And after a brief word from our sponsors, we'll be discussing more with Jay, what he does to recharge his ambitious body, mind, and spirit right here on the Ambitious Radio Network.
It's that time again. Summertime. Kids are out of school, running around, having fun in the sun.
Leaving the doors open, trying to air condition the entire neighborhood. I just got my first electric bill of the summer, and it is double what it was a few months ago. I can't wait for these kids to go back to school.
Tired of paying outrageous electricity bills? Would you like to get a significant discount or get free electricity? Go to freeelectricitydfw.com to compare our rates. Many of our clients are saving anywhere from 15 to 20%. We also have a referral program that allows you to earn free electricity. You cannot beat free cents per kilowatt.
Switch and save with freeelectricitydfw.com. That's freeelectricitydfw.com.
We offer free energy credits to customers who refer and activate 15 or more qualified customers for our electricity service and are not past due on their bill. To get your free energy credit, your customers must be referred through your free customer gathering website. See freeelectricitydfw.com for more details.
And we're back in here on the show. It's Ambitious Radio Network, recharging the ambitious mind, body, and spirit, made possible by RepairMyCreditNow.com. You know, having bad credit can be really draining. It's okay to not be okay as long as you're on the road to being okay. Let RepairMyCreditNow.com help get you back on track. You know, many of our ambitious listeners prefer to listen to books as opposed to reading them. Now, with that, we've teamed up with Audible.com to offer you one free audiobook. Just go to ambitiousradio.com, click on the Audible banner on the page to find out more. Back to the show now with Doug Parker.
All right, we're back on the Ambitious Radio Network, and what an ambitious time we have had today. I have really gained a ton of knowledge. I'm just scribbling notes down like crazy. We got Jay Samit on the show today, and this gentleman is just dropping tons of nuggets of information. But right now we're going to talk a little bit about what he does to recharge his ambitious body, mind, and spirit. You heard him talk a little bit about he doesn't need a lot of sleep. Now, you mentioned, that leaves you 20 to 21 hours or so to have your mind be filled with things. So that means you're sleeping, 3, 4, 5 hours a night, huh?
Yeah, that's about it. But to reach, the easiest thing is, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're hanging out with the wrong crowd, okay? Life is about a lifelong commitment to learning. Go to a conference, go to a meeting, watch TED Talks online, watch my TED Talk, but really get out there and see different perspectives. When you look through history, why do we have these major cities of Cairo and Damascus and everything? They were on the Silk Road because when the traders came, everybody would come, and not just silk and spices, but ideas and cultures. And it's that clashing of different ideas that new things come from. So that's how you're obviously there's no greater motivation than family. I mean, I'm so proud of my sons and what they've turned into, and what if I've done anything in the world, it was making good people. And so that recharges you. And then the purity of nature and travel, no one ever regretted going somewhere. Travel isn't about just seeing new sights. It's about seeing the world differently and seeing your place in the world differently. So it's so easy to get re-inspired. And in Disrupt You, I got to interview and talk to teens that came up with new techniques for curing and fighting cancer that are now being used around the world in their teenage years. it makes me feel like I've wasted half a century when you look at what people were able to do. So there's a competitiveness also to this, and life is short. Make a difference while you can.
So you talked about traveling and, just seeing the different cultures and the different ways that you can interact with those folks, or how you're maybe lacking in some of those things. But is there a favorite place that you like to go in the world?
My favorite place in the world is someplace I haven't been. So I've been blessed to have worked in 50 countries, and I continue to travel. And each time you learn things, and I never had the skill for mastering languages. And now when we're looking at Google Translate, you can just sit there and hold a phone, and each of you have an ear set on, and you can talk to each other and hear each other, and it instantly translates like you're on Star Trek. It is making the world so small and so close and so easy to communicate. And what you realize is everybody wants the same thing. Everybody wants a better world, a better place for their family. And I was just at a hackathon that 50,000 people went to Tenerife for a tech conference. That's 50,000 people coming to an island of 400,000. It was insane. But I'm inspired by what I'm seeing coming out of the minds of the next generation. And it's the greatest time to be alive.
That's great information. Now, you mentioned millennials and jobs, and for the millennials is a big issue. And, when we're talking about these millennials, they have a different, when it comes to rest and those types of things, they seem to have a little different idea. It's not, I don't see as many of them that are as hard charging and the grinded out working 80, 90 hours a week. They want that quality of life. And so have you seen that be the same, or are you seeing something maybe a little different?
No, well, they're seeing a different reality than we grew up with. We grew up with that mantra that there would be a large corporation to take care of everyone. And they're saying that they don't buy into that. They're saddled with student debt. So all these students have a mortgage but no house. And so many of the dreams of home ownership, it's the lowest home ownership in the U.S. since pre-World War II. And so they're saying, let's live for today. Let's have a better life-work balance, because they don't believe that you can save up and achieve certain things. And we're going into a world of having more sustainability, more of a circular economy, more of building the sharing economy. So you're going to see new types of businesses that grow up around social and local and mobile. And you're still going to see just as ambitious, Dan Price started his company, and he's a billionaire millennial, and Rent the Runway was started by two gals that couldn't afford to go to, all the weddings that they had in their social circle, so they could rent dresses, and became billionaires. The difference, chasing the dollar, they're chasing the dream, and we're so interconnected that the dollars follow. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, chasing not chasing a dollar, they're chasing the dream. That's exciting, exciting stuff. And there's different ways to do stuff. There's talent. There's new ideas. There's hard work. A combination of those things can definitely make it happen. And I was kind of transition, kind of a little bit back to you. I just wanted to ask you about the millennials. And this is maybe something I can tell your intensity, but your creativity, all the things you've got going on. But what would you say that someone would find surprising about you? Maybe your family, people that see you on a day-to-day basis would know this, but normal interaction folks with you wouldn't know that they'd find surprising.
I, since I've been 4 years old, have been obsessed with magic. I'm a performing member of the Magic Castle in Hollywood. I paid my way through college as a magician. I love to watch new acts this season on America's Got Talent. There's some amazing magicians taking it to the next level. And what I love about it actually impacted my whole career, because it's about making the impossible possible and opening people's minds that anything can happen.
That's pretty cool. So you say you actually were able to fund yourself through college by doing magic?
Yeah.
That is very interesting. I always like hearing the things that are not necessarily out there on the internet, and when you're doing research on folks. And you did mention, your TED Talk, and I watched that, and it's really just a different perspective than what many people have seen, and just the disruption. They see it from a distance with the Ubers of the world or the Airbnbs and those kinds of things, but they don't maybe aren't paying attention for whatever reason. So I really enjoyed the content that we got there. Now, I see that you are social. So if someone wanted to interact with you, how would be the best way for them to do that online?
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter at jsamit, JAYSAMIT. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on virtually any social platform out there. And it's me. It's not a staff of people doing that stuff. And just like a shower, people need daily motivation. So my Twitter feed's really about empowerment and ideas and a little bit of humor to help you get through that next day, because success isn't guaranteed. It's not an easy road. It's a roller coaster, and maybe you won't feel like you're going on the roller coaster alone.
That's great. You talked about kind of the motivation. Zig Ziglar used to have a quote that, or just maybe a comment, but he said that some people will talk about motivation and say that it doesn't last, and he said, well, neither does bailing. That's why we recommend it daily. So tune in to Jay's feeds on Facebook and Twitter and those kind of things. Again, we'll put the links on the show notes page. Jay Samit, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was great information.
Thank you for having me, Doug, and to the listeners. I guarantee if you just live a few of your years of your life the way most people aren't willing to, you'll get to live the rest of your life the way most people can't afford to.
Man, that is unbelievable. So tune in on Wednesdays to Ambitious Radio, where we interview thought leaders and exciting entrepreneurs changing the faces of their organizations. Remember, you can make money or you can make excuses, but you cannot make both. So go out there and be ambitious.
Thank you for listening to the Ambitious Radio Network, hosted by serial entrepreneur Doug Parker. Join us weekly as we have engaging conversations with ambitious entrepreneurs and thought leaders on topics that can be applied immediately after listening. Like what you've heard? Listen to other interviews at ambitiousradio.com or subscribe on iTunes.